Welcome back to Rare Connection. I'm your host, Joanna. This is podcast is here to shine light on rare conditions, to educate medical professionals and the public, and most importantly, to give families a platform to share their story. As always, I want to remind our listeners that I am not a medical professional, that stories shared here are for informational purposes only, and should never replace personal medical advice. Today, we're talking about Okur-Chung Neurodevelopmental Syndrome, or OCNDS, an ultra-rare genetic condition caused by variants in the CSNK2A1 gene. Only about 300 patients worldwide have been diagnosed so far. My guest today is Jillian Kavanagh. Jillian is a nurse, practitioner with Mass General Brigham Health in Massachusetts. But she also is a rare disease parent. Her daughter Ellie was diagnosed with OCNDS at age 4. Jillian now works closely with CSNK2A1 Foundation as a founding member, helping to bridge the gap between the medical community and families affected by this condition. Jillian, thanks for so much for joining us. Could you start by sharing Ellie's story?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. So Ellie was born. I was a normal pregnancy. And was born, and beautiful baby. And we quickly found that she was just not meeting her developmental milestones. And those can be kind of different for every baby. It's not really kind of a textbook thing. So our pediatrician had said, maybe she's just going to take a little bit longer. But our concerns grew when she really didn't have great gross motor skills. So she really wasn't able to roll, move her head. So we really started her with, early intervention, PT, OT, and her speech delay was also pretty apparent as she got older. So we're lucky to live in Massachusetts, where we have excellent resources for any medical issues or complexities. And so we linked up with Boston Children's Hospital in Boston, and we linked up with a neurologist and found that she was having seizures. And not the typical grand mal seizures. These were a little bit more insidious, a little harder to recognize. They were just head bobs for her. And once she was diagnosed with epilepsy, it really kind of created some questioning as to where that came from. So we did a lot of genetic testing. Again, very fortunate to be in the Boston Children's Hospital organization network, and found that she had a diagnosis of OCNDS. And at the time, there were probably about 200 and something people in the world with it. And we were given a packet and a link to the foundation. I had to get in touch with the foundation, the CSNK2A1 Foundation, and told, hey, we don't really know a lot about it. Really sorry, but here are your resources. And from there, it really took off as far as finding out more about other kids with this genetic disorder, talking to other families, and realizing that some of us have very different paths that we are walking, and a lot of us also have a lot of similarities. So it's a great group. We're very close-knit. And there's a lot of research being done, which is really, it's making the path a lot easier knowing that there's recognition for this. And right now she's 10 and she's doing great. She's in school. She's in kind of a special program to help her with her learning disabilities. But she is thriving, doing great. And we're really proud of all she's come, all she's endured and how far she's come.
So you're a medical professional yourself, yet you've said you were surprised at how extensive and difficult diagnostic process was. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced in getting at least genetic testing done?
Yeah, of course. My background as a nurse practitioner actually started in spine surgery, and not too much neuro, more orthopedic spine. And I know the business side of healthcare, unfortunately, being on that side of things, and insurance is a big deterrent, a big roadblock to getting what we need. And it's not new to anyone who knows the rare disease community. It's awful. And even outside of that, just basic needs of patients are not being met because of the financial constraints of insurance. So we were told that her genetic testing was not going to be covered whatsoever, that she didn't meet the criteria. And then reading what their criteria was, it really wasn't a criteria. They just didn't want to pay for it. And unfortunately, that's just how it goes when it comes to insurance. They can just say no. So we appealed, and then going through the Children's Hospital Network, they actually had a grant, and they said that they were going to be doing some research. And if she participated in the research, that her genetic testing would be covered. So again, very fortunate. I talked to a lot of parents that are still fighting, and even just to get an MRI for their kid to make sure that they don't have any masses in their brains, or just getting certain services. Insurance can just say no, and it's so frustrating being on both sides of it. So that's not unique to the rare disease community, but certainly felt harder by the rare disease community.
Yeah, I'm on medical foods myself for a medical condition called homocystinuria, and they do have a lot of insurance things built, like it's billed into durable medical equipment for some reason. And when you're billed for durable medical equipment, you're expecting like things like canes and walkers and wheelchairs and not food.
I know.
And so did you look at did you have to look at the nutrition benefit under the durable medical equipment?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, let me just read those fine print paragraphs over and over again, because I have all the time in the world. It is, I mean, even I own my own business, and I do a lot of women's health, hormone management and stuff. And some of them would be clear candidates for certain medical therapies. And insurance just says no. For whatever reason. Yep. They just say no. So a lot of times it's paying out of pocket.
So once you had the diagnosis, what changed for Ellie in terms of treatment and therapies and medications?
So we knew what we had to look out for. There's a really kind of broad spectrum of within this diagnosis, even though it's a very small population. There are some kids that have severe gastrointestinal issues and need G tubes. We didn't know if that was something that she would potentially need. Some of them have certain cardiomyopathies. So we knew what the possibilities were. So we got a cardiologist, we got an endocrinologist, we got a gastrointestinal specialist. All of these just to kind of check off the boxes to kind of prevent any surprises. Because, there are some kids that just have developmental. There are some that have more physical. There are some that have more, neurological issues. We didn't know where she fit, but we wanted to make sure that all the possibilities were researched. So that really did help to know what could potentially happen and to find those specialists to check her out.
Mm-hmm. How has day-to-day life been for you, for your family since learning about OCNDS?
She's our first, so that's all we've really known for her. Our son Jack is neurotypical, does not have OCNDS, and we do see him, his activities of daily living coming to him much quicker, and milestones coming to him much quicker. But we just know that it just takes her a little bit longer, and we just have to kind of practice that patience of she's going to get it. She just needs a minute. She's going to do it. So it does test patience sometimes, especially when you have a busy life, like when you have two little kids. But it has taught us to be patient. She is the loveliest little human, and she, absolutely inspires us every single day. She's loving and kind. And, a lot of that is great to model for Jack. So Jack can see, my sister is a really sweet, resilient kid too. So she's a great role model for him as well. Day to day is challenging in some ways, but also lovely because of who she is.
Yeah, I've seen her do a lot of the modeling in your Facebook posts.
Yeah, she's funny. She's a funny kid. She's a very funny kid.
So you mentioned that you mentioned that not every family has equal access to genetic testing therapies. Are specialists, can you share what you've observed from taking other OCNDS families? What inquiries stand out the most to you about, and what steps could help close the gap?
Yeah, it's awareness is one of the biggest ones. Even in a place like Massachusetts, where we have, in my opinion, the best of the best. We've got great specialists, at our fingertips. Just a 30-minute drive. We can see really the brightest minds. We actually have Dr. Chung as the head of pediatrics at Boston Children's. So we have the person who knows all about it. It is very easy to recognize that there is a socioeconomic and political aspect to all of this. And access to healthcare really depends on where you are and, unfortunately, your financial status. And it is so wrong, because I talk to a lot of families that will say, okay, sure, we'd love to see we'd love to see Dr. Chung. We'd love to see this neurologist. We'd love to, and they live in the middle of nowhere. They have one car, and that car needs to be used for one of the parents to go to work, and they can't take the time off. And even if they get that diagnosis, say if they do get it, and well, where do they go from there? Where do they get these good specialists? They can't just hop on a plane and go. That might not be financially feasible for them. So there is that whole nightmare of getting that diagnosis and then not having access to all of those resources. And that's what I'm trying to do within the OCNDS community and within the foundation, is trying to figure out how we can spread awareness and somehow get these great resources to these parents that don't have access. And it's tricky. It's really tricky, because there's such a socioeconomic aspect to it. And we'll figure it out. We will definitely figure it out. But it definitely, with the use of technology, has been helpful. As long as we could continue telemedicine. Again, I know that there are some insurance companies that are threatening to not pay for telemedicine, which is like insane to me. Like, you can't just hop on a plane and get to Boston to go see somebody. It's not feasible for a lot of people. So hopefully with the use of technology, we can really spread awareness and allow these families to connect with the specialists that would help their kids.
Talking about travel to care, how far do you travel to care?
We don't have to travel that far. Boston is about 35 minutes away. I mean, without traffic, but and Boston traffic is a little wild, but to get to Boston Children's, it's about 35 minutes. And her neurologist is 15 minutes away. And I know that is not the case for a lot of families. And it's global, and to speak to some families who live in different countries. My husband's from Ireland. There are a couple of families in Ireland, and how they treat a rare disease diagnosis is very different. They get a lot of social support. And that's unfortunately being threatened in our country. And that's something we need to really keep in mind as well. So it is really interesting to hear, and also disheartening at times to hear that people really aren't getting what they need as far as support and access to medical professionals.
How did you become involved in CSNK2A1 Foundation? What role do you play as a founding member?
So as part of the parent advisory board, and that's how I kind of networked within the foundation's community. And then it kind of created this unique opportunity with my medical background and being a rare disease mom to create the Compassion Initiative, and that is to bridge the gap. I can speak to families and also speak to medical professionals. I can say to a pediatrician in rural or suburban Massachusetts and say, hey, I know this is uber rare and the chances of you having a kid on your patient list with this is not great, but this is something that we find, or in my belief, is actually way more prevalent than we think, because there are also kids just like Ellie that I see every single day that just have a little bit of a harder time learning and may have underlying seizures that are, again, insidious and not really easy to pick up. And then also to speak to the people who know it the best, and the neurologists, the epileptologists, and all of them, to get all that information and then relay it to the CSNK2A1 Foundation community. That's really important to me, because, and we also do a lot of research. We have scientific members within the board that do incredible amounts of research, and they are on top of everything. If there's ever any genetic testing, if there's ever any sort of mice studies or new therapies that could be really promising, we get all that information. And that is something that I think is such a strong suit for us as a community, because we really do know exactly all the efforts that are being put forth to understand and to treat this genetic disorder.
So what initiatives or resources does the foundation provide for you that you think are most impactful for families?
I think it's also just support, mostly. To know you're not alone, to be able to have someone that you can just send a message to and say, hey, or post within our Facebook group of, do any parents, have they had this experience, or does any kid have this diagnosis? We met with this person, they told us this. Has anyone else been told that? That really does lessen the anxieties of being a rare disease parent, because there are people that are also walking a similar path, and they're very easy to connect with. There's also opportunities within RDLA, the Rare Disease Legislative Advocates. That is, that we go to. I haven't been, unfortunately, but there are opportunities to attend these big organizations, these annual rallies, and to learn a little bit more about other rare diseases. I got in touch with Mass Bio, which is a great organization that really is in the forefront of medical research, and learning about certain grants that are being put towards rare disease research and where that's being done and what their goals are. That I can get and put it into the foundation and say, hey, look, I spoke to this person, and this is really, and it creates this sense of hope, that where our kids are being seen and our experiences are being heard, and respected, and that there's forward movement. So even just a sense of community is huge for us.
So you bring a rare perspective as both a nurse practitioner and a rare disease parent. How has your professional background shaped the way you advocate for Ellie on for the OCNDS community?
I do find that it is easier to navigate the medical aspect of it, obviously, because I've been in medicine for many, many years. Understanding the best path to optimize her health, that is unique, and I really enjoy sharing that, and what I know, and whether it even be, hey, this could happen, you guys should see. I'm not giving medical advice to people, but check this resource out, or maybe speak to this specialist, because it could be important for maybe another kid within the community. I also know the business side of things, unfortunately. It's, navigating insurance. It's not new. I spent many, many hours on the phone with insurance companies trying to approve spinal surgeries for people that absolutely needed it. And, that's not new to me. So I know what to say to get things approved, and happy to share those tips to anybody. But I also know what's being done and what is promising, and knowing where to find really good information, and knowing what's false. There is a lot of misinformation on the internet, and you can get in a lot of trouble. So knowing what are peer-reviewed clinical studies and what is actually fact versus fiction is also definitely helpful. And I'm happy to clarify anything that could potentially cause any sort of misinformation, for anybody.
Do you find that living this experience, do you find that living this experience has also changed the way you approach patients in your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we always are taught, throughout learning medicine, if you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. I threw that out the window, to be honest. I understand that a common clinical diagnosis is likely going to be what's happening, but I never, ever, ever think that it could never be a zebra, because every once in a while it can be. It could be something that is rare, and maybe it's not so rare. I see kids like Ellie all the time where I'm like, well, what if we did that genetic testing? Would they have some kind of malformation of the CSNK2A1 gene? Maybe. But it kind of created this more of a fluid way of diagnosing people where it's not so rigid, and understanding that it's not always just one diagnosis. It could be something either rare or a bunch of different diagnoses, and not to just force a patient to be in a box because it mostly fit their clinical presentation. That definitely changed how I take a look at patients.
What gives you hope right now, whether that's in research, patient advocacy, or at least personal progress? If another parent just starting this journey with OCNDS is listening, what message would you want to share with them?
I would say that our community is growing, which is great because we're getting more clinical data from so many other kids. And there are some also adults, but this was only found in 2016. So we're really only getting pediatric diagnoses. So there's so much research being done, which helps us feel seen, help as parents, that there's actually being attention. There's some attention being paid towards our kids and to create a better future for them. I think seeing the different clinical presentations within our community is very interesting, but also will create better awareness. And again, because there's just such a large spectrum, such a wide spectrum of presentations, even within our small community. So having more people in our community telling their personal stories and spreading awareness is only going to help. So I would say that our forward progress is definitely creating a lot of hope, for sure.
Does the foundation deal with any of the other conditions, or is it just with the NDS?
Just OCNDS, but we do work closely with like Angelman syndrome because some of that clinical presentation is very similar. So within the rare disease community, we do work with other foundations that specifically cater to different or serve different genetic disorders.
Right. There's more than one condition on this gene.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was kind of wondering if it's named after the genetic mutation, whether if it has
Right.
anything to do with the other conditions that are on that gene too.
Yeah, it's specifically OCNDS, and that's the main focus.
Mm-hmm. Jillian, thank you so much for sharing Ellie's story and and your advocacy work with us today, and your dual perspective as both a nurse practitioner and a parent is incredibly valuable. And I know families listening will feel encouraged by your words. For listeners, if you'd like to learn more about the CNDS or connect with the community, visit CSNK2A1 Foundation. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Rare Connection wherever you get your podcast, and check out my YouTube channel, Rare Chef, where you'll also we also post video content. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're listening on audio, you can send me a text in the show note with a link in the show notes. You can also follow Rare Connection on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And as always, if you are someone you know is struggling with mental health, please know that help is available. In the US, you can dial 988 or connect with us or connect with the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Or you can text hello to 741-741 to reach the crisis text line. Thank you for listening, and remember, sharing our story helps us all feel a little less rare.